I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what's going on. I don't care if grandma is squeezing the life alert. We need to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 261. Believe me, she's going to understand. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Anime Okage, and today we're going to be going over Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 261. Let's get into it. It's insane. Jumping back in right where we left off, we see Yuji with his hand still inside of Sukuna's chest, and he has decided that he is going to rip Sukuna's heart out because he sees it as the only way to keep this guy from getting up again. And we can see this rage that has been building up on Yuji. We see it in his face right here as he flashes back to his brother Choso and the sacrifice that Choso made for Yuji. And just like we saw last week, without missing a beat, we see Gojo. And it's not a vision, it's Gojo. But as Sukuna sees Gojo as he's chanting for domain expansion, he thinks, no, that's impossible, I killed him. There's no way. But as the great Gojo Satoru raises his head, Sukuna realizes how this is happening and what exactly is happening. Sukuna realizes what we're all wondering and punches Yuji away so quick, it's almost like he could have done it the entire time. But he's filled up with excitement, and he says, I'm sorry for underestimating you. I had no idea what you were capable of, Yuta Akotsu. Sukuna addresses Gojo as Yuta, and we see those scars, those Kenjaku scars on Gojo's forehead. First seeing these scars, I know you're just like me, and you're like, no way Kenjaku found a way to get a hold of Gojo's body. There's no way that Kenjaku's gonna pull off another ass pull and somehow gonna survive being killed by Yuta. But it's not Kenjaku. It is Yuta who's copied the technique of Kenjaku, which we all thought he could copy Kenjaku's technique, but it's kind of like a super ultimatum technique. It's extremely powerful, but not powerful at all until it's enacted. But that comes with great sacrifice. I've always thought, how did Kenjaku even find out that that was his curse technique? How did it start off? How did it even play around with that? Those are all just my personal thoughts. That doesn't matter right now. I'm not going to go into a rant about Kenjaku's curse technique. All we need to know is that Yuta copied it and he used it on Gojo's body. And the way that Yuta did this was once he defeated Kenjaku, he had Rika devour his body in order to take in his curse technique. And as we see later in the chapter due to flashbacks, this isn't something that Rika was like, hey, I grab a snack and sure, go ahead and get Kenjaku. Or just like, I'll just put this in my back pocket for later. This was a part of a plan, a very detailed and very compelling plan. A plan that goes against all humane standards possible. But that's the thing with this plan. Humanity need to be thrown to the side so that they could fight a monster. As we cut back to the flashback and we see that they're talking about Rika devouring the body of Kenjaku as a part of the plan, Maki is completely against it. And understandably, she's against it. Because she knows the implications of using Kenjaku's technique. Because to use Kenjaku's technique, you need to forfeit your old body in order to gain the new body. That usually comes with the territory of taking your brain out and putting it into a different body. Your old body will no longer be of use. And as Maki objects, Hikari steps in, not happy about the plan, but at least he implements a condition. He says he's only good with the plan as long as everyone else in the party, in the heroes party, is completely wiped out and can do nothing else. This is a 100% last ditch effort move that they would only implement if they absolutely had to. And Kusakabe trying to remedy the situation and find a way around it. Obviously, we're going to try every single avenue we can. He suggests, why not just copy Limitless? And Shoko cuts him off and says, you can't copy Limitless because Limitless can only be performed with the 6 eyes. So Kusakabe goes, just copy the 6 eyes. And Shoko comes back at him again and says, we can't copy the 6 eyes because that's an actual physical trait of the clan that has nothing to do with a curse technique. So it's not anything he can copy. The only way I could see you copying it is if Mahito understood how the six eyes work and how they're wired, and then perhaps he could change your eyes to become like the six eyes. But I don't know if the absolute genetics have to be in there, but I think Mahito can change literally everything about the soul and body. So perhaps if Mahito had been a good guy, they could have utilized him for this. That's just my thought. Again, it has nothing to do with the chapter. Just me throwing in 2 cents. But Maki brings up a really good point. She says, your copy technique only lasts for 5 minutes. What happens when the 5 minutes are up and you're still in Gojo's body? And Yuta says, I don't know. Rightfully so. He's never done this before or performed any kind of curse technique that would make him forfeit his own body. So, of course he doesn't know how this is going to end. Now, I don't know if the 5-minute implication is a part of the curse technique or it's just because that's all Yuta can handle. Now, if he has the six eyes and he knows how to regulate his curse energy, just like Gojo had Limitless running all the time or Infinity, couldn't utilize the six eyes in order to keep Kenjaku's technique going as if it were his own? I know that Yuta is a bottomless well of cursed energy, as it's been stated before, but it even says in this chapter how Gojo kind of gives him some crap for not knowing how to regulate his cursed energy properly and being really sloppy with it. Now, Mei brings up some pros and cons to using Kenjaku's technique, and I'm going to look away from the camera and actually read these off exactly so I don't get them wrong. 1. If Kenjaku's cursed technique is of the constant or intermittent operation type, the physical body or the soul can't be maintained and he'll die. 2. If the cursed technique operates intermittently, he won't immediately die, but he will eventually die. So these are the two kind of options. Is it constant or intermittent? And 3. If the cursed technique is a single-use, one-time technique, he can use Limitless even past 5 minutes. And Mei brings up the point that it's possible once he switches into Gojo's body, he could lose his cursed technique forever, and he may just be stuck in Gojo's body from here on out. Which, at the end of the day, it's not Yuta's body. I know that anyone would love to get Gojo's powers and everything like that, but it's not Yuta's body. He's walking around in the corpse of his former teacher, or his sensei. And I can't imagine what that would do to your psyche after a while. And also, you're Yuta Akotsu. You're not Gojo Satoru. So, obviously, he doesn't want to be in Gojo's body forever, but this is the absolute necessary step in order for them to try and defeat Sukuna here and now. And Yuta says he realizes that this drastic of a move has to be a last resort. So he's going to try and fight Sukuna on his own with his own domain and powers, and he'll only make this move if he cannot win on his own, or if Gojo loses. Remember, these are all contingency plans. They're on plan F or X right now. It's far down the line of if this happens, then this, and if this happens, then this. They have tried everything to try and win this battle, and it seems like they're coming to the ultimatum point. Kusakabe brings up the point, of course, that this is not humane. And Yuta cuts him off and says, humane? What are you talking about? We're fighting the strongest sorcerer of all time. If we can win this battle just by throwing away our humanity right now, then we shouldn't even be arguing about this. It should be that. To fight a monster, you must become a monster. And so a monster will be born. And of course, Yuta asks everybody if they're afraid of him becoming this monster. And Maki rebukes it and says, it's not we're scared of you becoming this monster in order to fight Sukuna. It's because we're worried about you. We care about you, Yuta. And that's whenever Yuta makes them all face the reality that they have been okay with Gojo being the monster this entire time. They've been okay with using him as the ultimate weapon of Jujutsu. They've been pushing the burden of being a monster on Gojo's shoulders this entire time, and no one blinked once when it came to caring about Gojo and the way he feels about that. I know that feelings don't really matter in a fight like this, but this is something that Gojo has had to deal with his entire life, to where it's given him an identity crisis. The classic question, are you the strongest because you're Gojo Satoru? Or are you Gojo Satoru because you're the strongest? Yuta says if they get to the point to where Gojo is gone, who else is going to step up and become the monster in his place that will fight off Sukuna and possibly defeat him? Now, instead of Yuta taking over Gojo's body, since we touched on the whole cursed corpse kind of thing way back, it was a really big deal. Principal got unalived for it. The whole Jujutsu tech community, all the elders came after it because they were so concerned about the cursed corpse technique. The super upped one that allows Panda to be its own consciousness and its own entity and not just some kind of drone. Now, if they would have taken cores and implemented that into Gojo and allowed Gojo's soul to return into a cursed corpse kind of thing, I think that would have been awesome, because I think that would have nerfed him enough to make it more of a reality that he needs everybody's help around him. He can't fight Sukuna alone. This got touched so much before in the earlier chapters. I just wish it would get implemented again. And watch, as soon as I say it, it's going to get implemented. So now I'm watching out for that. But I think that would have been really cool to touch on rather than using Kenjaku's technique. But I understand having to use Kenjaku's technique because that brings the gravity of the situation back in. It really makes us feel how dire the situation is and how dire the straits are. So I get it. For plot purposes, it needs to be this serious. The scene switches and Yuta tells Gojo that he will take his body if he absolutely needs to. And Gojo says, that's fine, you can do whatever you want with a dead body, but he doesn't intend on losing. At the end of the day, if he does though, it's just a corpse. Yuta then asks about his lineage, saying that he's heard from both sides that he is Fujiwara and he is also Sugawara. And both of those bloodlines are very important in the Jujutsu world, because also that makes him a descendant, or like a kind of distant cousin of Gojo himself. Which tells us that if Yuta is to take over the body of Gojo, that he will most likely be very compatible because they actually share the same bloodline, at least somewhat. Gojo even points out that Yuta may have been born under better circumstances than Gojo himself, so if he can't utilize Gojo's body once he passes, then he's completely lame for that. And Gojo brings up that Yuta's usage of cursed energy and how much he outputs is very sloppy, and he's been giving him crap for that for the past couple years. Gojo then asks his students to step away from him and go away for a moment, because he's about to do something that will end up on the bloody side, and he's not very sure if he's actually doing the right thing, but he is going through with something. Gojo says if I lose to Sukuna and all the old geezers, the upper level of Jujutsu, are all gone, that Gakuganji will take over, the rocked out principal of Kyoto branch of Jujutsu Tech. He's going to take over and make sure that none of the chaos ensues, just like at the end of the Shibuya incident. So Gojo is about to go take care of business and give these elders what they've been deserving for a very long time. So Gojo once again tells his students that they need to leave and get out of the room. And his students say, no, you're not going to become a monster alone. We're going to be with you every step of the way with this. Gojo begins to walk into the room and says at this moment he was left behind and he needs to catch up. And then it shows a picture of Suguru. He is referencing the point to where Suguru killed everybody in that village that was torturing those young girls for having cursed techniques. And that's whenever he began his hate for everybody who wasn't a sorcerer in the world. He made the decision and never looked back after killing all the people in that village. And now Gojo is going to make his own stance by unaliving all the people that he believes are making the world a worse place. So in that fashion, he is catching up to Suguru's actions in his own way. We cut back over to apparently one of Yuji's friends. I don't remember who this is at all, and I don't remember where he came from, so if you remember, please throw it in the comments down below, because I'm confused as all hell to where this guy came from. But he has a very mediocre curse technique, and he's showing it off here. Apparently he can amplify and use sugar within his own body when it comes to curse technique, and he can also output the effects of that sugar into other people. So basically he can inject sugar into other people as well. It may sound really dumb, but it's perfectly tailored for this particular situation because Shoko puts him on the medical team with her and Nita. And her and Nita, to keep working at the pace that they're working, need their brains supplied with sugar or some kind of fuel in order to keep moving. So they're gonna have him making sure their brains are top notch and getting fed with his sugar output curse technique. It's such a dumb technique. I guess it has its place, but it's so dumb. The scene switches again back to the medical team, and we see Yuta completely cut to shreds on the operating table. And it doesn't look like he is going to be with us for very long. We also see Toto's brother Arata there, the man with the most useful and the most mysterious curse technique I think that we've seen in the series, because we don't know what the capabilities are when it comes to like keeping people alive. He used his technique on Nobara back in Shibuya. And the entire community has been wondering, since she's been put in a stasis effect to where she's not decomposing, and it's almost as if she only died a few seconds ago, just like whenever it's been months and months and months now, a very long time. But it's in her world, in her little stasis area within her own body, she's only been dead for a few seconds. So if there's a way to use reverse curse technique to bring her back, then they probably could. And I'm thinking the same thing goes for Yuta's body. So Arata makes sure that none of his wounds keep getting worse. He basically freezes what's happening to Yuta's body, and that's as bad as the injuries will get. So he has bought Yuta some time when it comes to the procedure that they're about to perform. Yuta's good enough to talk right now, and he says that he has Rika to thank for being alive right now, but he's soon about to reach his limit. And Shoko tells him that this entire time that she has been stitching up Gojo's corpse in order to make this kind of brain swap, or this actual brain swap happen with Kenjaku's technique, she has been preparing the body. But she does say she can only do so much, and whenever Yuta gets into Gojo's body, he's going to have to release all of his reverse curse technique in order to finish the job. Now, we all know that Yuta swaps into Gojo's body at this point. Now, I know it's been brought up that Yuta could pass once the 5 minutes are up. They don't know how this is going to work, so it's got to be balls to the walls for a whole 5 minutes. But since Arata has stopped the injuries from progressing, isn't it possible that Shoko could stitch Yuta back together to where possibly they could put Yuta back in his old body later on? If it's not going to decompose anymore and it's going to be on the operating table where Shoko was able to stitch Gojo back together, what's to say she can't do it for Yuta's body as well? I feel like Arata doing that to Yuta's body gives us a glimmer of hope that he could go back into his original body before the series ends. Because at this point, Gojo's being used as a fleshy mech suit for Yuta's brain, because Gojo inevitably is the greatest weapon in the Jujutsu world. And that's all he's ever been treated as a weapon. And this is the epitome of that thought process, is that even in death, he cannot rest because he is being made to fight more as the top tier weapon that the sorcerers have against Sukuna. So we shoot back to the present where Sukuna and Gojo Yuta are both about to release their domain expansions at the same time. And I will mention that they are both using the same hand sign. It's cool because Sukuna is adapting Gojo's hand sign since his hands don't really work right now. He's got a nub and one hand on the side. But it says that Gojo has already shown the gang the remedy to Sukuna's open barrier technique. So now he can't surprise them with it. There's no time that they have to take in order to learn how this works. Gojo already figured it out for them. So now they have one leg up in the fight, or the domain battle, against Sukuna. And the chapter ends with both domains opening in this awesome double spread. It shows us Unlimited Void once again, along with the resurrection of Malevolent Shrine. Both sorcerers facing off against each other. As much as I wanted to believe that Gojo was coming back, and he's still not back, he's not really back. I didn't think I'd get to see a panel of them facing off again. This is incredible. This is insane. I know a lot of people are really mad about what's going on right here, but this shows that Gege has been wondering how he's going to do this for a very long time, because we get a lot of signs in the past of the manga leading up to this point right now. Also, Gege hates Gojo, and he killed him off, and we all got really mad at Gege for that. And Gege is bringing us back Gojo, but not in the way we wanted. So we're all gonna go, we don't like it either. And he's gonna go, then I guess I'll kill him off. He's doing it to us twice, and I don't appreciate it, because now it's making sense of why we want Gojo back. Because it's sad at this point. It's sad at this point seeing his body get used as a flesh mech, and it just doesn't sit. It's not Gojo. It's Gojo's powers and his likeness, but it's not Gojo. It's Yuta, and we're possibly also losing Yuta in this. One of our favorite characters. The whole community gets hyped when Yuta does anything. Now, there's some things that could happen, and this is getting completely into theory territory. We saw before that Kenjaku confirmed that the body is the soul and the soul is the body. Now that Gojo's body is completely restored, just like Sugru's body was completely restored, we saw Suguru come back in the form of his hand lashing up and choking Kenjaku, taking some kind of control again. If Gojo's body is back, what's to say that Gojo's soul couldn't reclaim his body again? And I know it's like, well, he doesn't have his brain anymore. I bet you they still have the brain. And if they're able to take Yuta's brain back out and put it back into his repaired body, and if Gojo's brain didn't work at all, I'm sure if his soul was taking over the body, that he could use his reverse curse technique to bring back his brain. I don't know, because there's a part of the brain that controls reverse curse technique, but if his soul's there and he still has thought process and everything like that, I don't know how he couldn't bring back his brain. This is just one of the theories that could happen. We also get into the territory of Yuta co-piloting this thing with Gojo. Gojo showing him how his body works, giving him hints, giving him advice, and coaching him through the battle using his own techniques. Also, I'd like to add here that when Kenjaku took over another body, he also kept the old technique that was with the body that he had previously. What's to say that Yuta wouldn't carry over all of his curse techniques that he had gotten before along with Rika in the new body of Gojo, and he's able to utilize Six Eyes and Limitless in order to buff and amplify his own curse techniques to their fullest extent. One thing, as we know, is that the Rika that he possesses now is not as powerful as the Rika that he possessed in movie Zero. And this Rika was one that Suguru couldn't even compete with for a second once she started going off. And she is the Queen of Curses. If he is able to amplify Rika, or amplify his domain, or even amplify any of the curse techniques that he's copied over the years, I can't even imagine. This is like the perfect combo. You get Yuta's broken curse techniques in his bottomless well of energy, and then you also get the techniques of Gojo and the Six Eyes in order to effectively and efficiently use all that cursed energy to their highest potential. Another reason why I think they can bring back Yuta's body is because look at Yuji. Whenever Sukuna was in Yuji's body, Yuji had been dead for over 24 hours, and with reverse curse technique and a binding vow, Sukuna was able to restore Yuji's body and bring him back from the dead. And even if you look at the seance technique that brought Toji back, they only brought back Toji's body. That was the main thing. She never wanted to bring back the soul because the soul was potential for her to lose the host body of whoever was being seanced. So she only ever brought back the body and let the host manipulate and use the body as they pleased. But once Toji's body was back, his spirit was strong enough to come back, find his body, and take it over again and use it to its fullest extent, thus fully reincarnating. Even after the seance user had passed, Toji was still there, alive and kicking. He's the one that decided that he didn't need to be there anymore. But if he wanted to, he could have stayed throughout the entirety of the story and lived his life like normal, I believe. There are so many instances that have showed us that as long as the body exists, so does the soul, and vice versa. JJK has given us a lot of avenues in order to make this work in our minds, but ultimately none of us know because JJK's a troll. And I don't know if he's going to bring Yuta back. I don't know if Gojo's going to take back over his body. It kind of seems too good to be true for everything to go back to normal because JJK doesn't like being nice to us. So I can see Yuta and Gojo departing for good and them covering up with, oh, well, Yuta gets to be with Rika truly now, and Gojo gets to go off into the afterlife and be with his best friend. But what about us? We want our heroes. Either way, I don't think anyone saw this coming. I don't believe that anyone could have called that Yuta was going to sacrifice his own life in order to use Kenjaku's technique and take over Gojo's body. People may be mad about this, but I want to see where JJK's going with it. Might be cooking, he might not be. And we can only find out next week. We can only see as the story progresses, but he has my attention. And I can't wait to see what happens next. Gojo may not actually be back, maybe not yet. We'll see if he ever does fully come back. But as of right now, it's so cool just to see him in a panel again, not in a flashback. So, guys, let me know what you thought down below. What do you think is going to happen next week? What are your theories? I really want to start getting into the theories as a community to see how close we can get. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Anime Okage. See you later.